Remember when superheroes didn't brood? They lectured criminals and then politely waited for a commercial break? From 1966 to 1968, Batman aired on ABC, turning comic books into pop art chaos and crime fighting into high-performance camp. Starring Adam West as the most serious Batman imaginable, Burt Ward as an endlessly enthusiastic Robin, and a rotating lineup of guest villains who all somehow understood the assignment, the show didn't just break the rules of superhero television, it ignored them completely. This was a world where punches had fonts, villains lived in crooked rooms, and the Batmobile cost exactly $1. Today, we're counting down 15 weird facts about Batman 1966. Stick around for number 1 when we reveal how Adam West invented one of the most parodied dance moves in pop culture history about 10 minutes before they filmed it. Now, before we jump in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hype this video. It helps YouTube show this to more retro TV lovers just like you. Alright, let's head straight to Gotham with number 15. The Joker refused to shave and Batman let it happen. When Cesar Romero signed on to play the Joker in the 1966 Batman movie, he had exactly one non-negotiable demand: the mustache stays. Romero was a classic Hollywood leading man, fiercely protective of his Latin lover image and his trademark mustache. Shaving it was not an option. Not for a clown, not for a comic book villain, not even for Batman. So production did the only thing it could do. They painted over it. Makeup artists slathered thick white grease paint directly on top of the hair, hoping studio lighting and fuzzy 1960s televisions would blur the evidence. It sort of worked. On old tube TVs, the mustache mostly disappeared into the glow. Fast forward to modern remastered Blu-rays and the illusion collapses completely. Every hair is visible, a ghostly mustache haunting the Joker's smile, proudly refusing to be erased, and here's the beautiful part, nobody really cared. The show didn't reshoot, they leaned into it. The Joker, a character defined by chaos and bad taste, couldn't even be bothered to shave properly. It fit the tone perfectly, and in any other show, this would have been a production nightmare, but on Batman, it became a feature. Number 14, the utility belt was one long-running joke. On the 1966 Batman, the utility belt had nothing to do with realism. It was about commitment, specifically committing to the idea that Batman had already thought through every possible disaster, including ones the writers clearly made up 5 minutes before shooting. Yes, the belt famously contained shark-repellent bat spray because obviously Gotham's biggest threat was airborne criminals and rogue great whites, but that was just the headline act. Buried in the belt were treasures like bat tweezers, an all-purpose bat swatter, and even a bat alphabet soup thermos. Because nothing strikes fear into criminals like knowing Batman packed a hot lunch just in case. But to make sure the joke landed, the writers slapped bat onto everything. A regular object was not good enough, it had to be aggressively branded. Sure, some of these ideas had roots in the comics. Batman had used shark repellent as early as 1958, but the show cranked the concept to 11. Preparedness stopped being a superpower and it became the joke. Batman didn't fight crime, he anticipated it, aggressively. Number 13, Batman nearly had a very different face. Before Adam West ever donned the cowl, the producers were seriously considering another contender, Lyle Waggoner. He wasn't just in the running, he filmed a full screen test and came this close to becoming the Caped Crusader. And honestly, Waggoner made perfect sense. He was tall, handsome, square-jawed. He looked like he stepped straight out of a comic book panel. His version of Bruce Wayne played it straight, heroic, and sincere. The problem was, so did the script, and that was the joke. The producers eventually realized the show didn't need a traditional superhero, it needed a straight man who understood he was standing in the middle of pop art insanity and refused to acknowledge it. That's where Adam West came in. West didn't just play Batman seriously, he played him mock seriously. He delivered the most ridiculous dialogue imaginable with the calm authority of a man explaining tax law. Pure conviction, but zero irony. And suddenly the absurdity worked. The final push came from an unlikely place, a Nestle Quick commercial. Producer William Dozier saw West playing a James Bond-style spy named Captain Q and immediately got it. West could parody serious genres without breaking character, and that was the secret sauce. As for Waggoner, losing Batman didn't slow him down. He became a fixture on the Carol Burnett Show for 7 years, holding his own in sketch comedy history, and in a delicious twist, he still joined the DC Universe, just not in Gotham, as Steve Trevor on Wonder Woman. Number 12, the Batmobile was literally a $1 supercar. The Batmobile didn't start as a crime-fighting masterpiece. It started as a forgotten 1955 Lincoln Futura concept car, an experimental showpiece Ford no longer wanted, couldn't use, and had basically written off as stylish scrap. Custom car legend George Barris bought it for exactly $1, and then the panic set in. Barris originally wanted to build a Batmobile from scratch, but the studio gave him a brutal deadline: 3 weeks. 21 days to create a superhero car for a network television show that hadn't even aired yet. Starting from zero was not an option, so Barris took one look at the Futura's massive fins and bubble canopy and decided to make it weird. What came out of that mad sprint became one of the most recognizable vehicles in TV history. Jet black paint, red trim, bat-themed everything. The Batmobile looked fast, but it absolutely was not. Thanks to its heavy steel body, constant overheating, and tendency to blow tires, the car topped out safely at around 45 miles per hour. High-speed chases were mostly camera tricks, editing, and Adam West pretending this thing could outrun traffic. Still, none of that mattered. The Batmobile didn't need speed, it had presence. It defined the look of the show and became as legendary as the Batsuit itself. Number 11, the villains were literally shot crooked. Good and evil on this show weren't defined by dialogue or costumes, they were defined by geometry. When the camera suddenly leaned like it had one too many martinis, that meant one thing: villain hideout. These exaggerated tilted shots, known as Dutch angles, weren't subtle filmmaking flair, they were visual dad jokes. The villains were crooked, so the show literally shot them crooked. The metaphor did zero heavy lifting here, and the rule was ironclad. Wayne Manor stayed perfectly level. The Gotham City Police Department stood straight as an arrow, but the second you cut to a lair filled with oversized props, color-coded henchmen, and a criminal mastermind in a themed outfit, the camera leaned so hard it practically needed a seatbelt. The angles weren't random either. Some villains even had their own signature tilts, subtly tweaking the frame to match their particular flavor of lunacy. Same city, same show, just different degrees of crooked. It also doubled as a clever nod to comic books. Those slanted frames mimicked the dynamic off-kilter panels of pop art comics, turning every villain scene into a living splash page. Stylish and ridiculous, exactly the show's brand. Number 10, Robin was basically the show's human crash test dummy. Burt Ward doubled as his own stunt coordinator. Falls, fights, chases, if something involved getting thrown, burned, or smashed into scenery, chances were high it was actually Burt Ward doing it. Adam West had veteran stuntman Hubie Kearns, but Ward got the honors of himself, over and over again. The results were intense. Ward had a little bit of a problem. Well, the studio had a little bit of a problem. The stuntman hired for Robin couldn't even pass for his double by 1960 TV exec standards. Ward later revealed that during his first week on the show, he spent 4 out of 5 days in the emergency room. In the very first episode, the Batmobile took a sharp turn, the door flew open, and Ward was launched straight onto the pavement like an unpaid volunteer for product testing. Those flashy atomic turbine sequences with the sparks and explosions, they were all real, and they regularly scorched Ward's cape and skin. During one stunt, he was supposed to crash through a breakaway sign, but the sign did not break. However, Ward did. The impact left him with chipped teeth and bruised ribs. Through it all, production just kept rolling. Ward later joked that the studio's long-term plan seemed to be seeing if they could finish him off before the end of the season, which makes every wide-eyed grin and every enthusiastic "holy bat whatever" hit a little differently in hindsight. The Boy Wonder earned those battle scars. Number 9, the Riddler almost vanished over a paycheck. Frank Gorshin owned the Riddler on the 1966 Batman. He was twitchy, maniacal, and laughing like a man who drank 6 espressos and then discovered crime. He instantly became one of the show's most popular villains and a huge part of why audiences kept tuning in. So, after season 1, Gorshin's agents did what agents do. They asked for more money, reportedly a bump from $3,500 to $5,000 per appearance. The producers said, and just like that, one of Batman's most beloved villains walked. Rather than cave, the show tried something bold. They took a script written for the Riddler and hastily rewired it into a brand new villain called the Puzzler, played by Maurice Evans. Same riddles, same energy, same idea, just different name. Viewers were not fooled. Ratings dipped and fans complained. The substitution landed with all the impact of a Bat Gadget that no one asked for. John Astin also appeared as the Riddler in a 2-part story arc during Gorshin's absence. Eventually, reality won. Gorshin and the studio reached an agreement, and he returned in season 3 for a final episode titled Ring Around the Riddler. It was a victory lap, a peace offering, and a quiet admission that lightning doesn't strike twice, especially when it's laughing hysterically in a green suit. Batman learned an important lesson here. You can replace a villain's name, you can rewrite the script, but you cannot replace manic genius with budget math. Number 8. Batman almost never made it to TV. Before it ever aired, Batman tested so badly that ABC executives quietly panicked. Test audiences were given dials to rate what they were watching in real time. First came the control footage, a Mr. Magoo cartoon. The dials went up and everyone was happy. Then Batman started and the dials dropped hard. Viewers were confused. They didn't understand the tone. The pilot scored in the upper 40s. For context, shows that survived usually landed in the mid-60s. These were some of the lowest audience test scores in ABC history. Executives reportedly believed they had a very expensive embarrassment on their hands. Normally, that's where a show quietly disappears, but Batman had a problem. It was too expensive to kill. ABC had already poured serious money into sets, costumes, marketing, and promotion. Canceling it outright would mean eating the entire loss, so instead of pulling the plug, the network did the only thing left. They aired it and hoped for the best. Then, January 12th of 1966 arrived and everything flipped. Once audiences saw Batman in context with proper promotion and an understanding that it was intentionally ridiculous, the show exploded. More than half of American households tuned in, a 51% share. Practically the entire country watching Pow and Zap Bubbles at the same time. Batman didn't survive because executives believed in it. It survived because it was too weird, too expensive, and too far along to stop, and sometimes that's exactly how television history gets made. Okay, we're gonna take a quick bat break, Batman, because if you're enjoying this countdown, hit that like button and subscribe. There's no shame, we're all in this bad algorithm together, and let us know in the comments, who was your favorite Batman villain from this series exclusively? Alright, let's get back to the madness with number 7. Batgirl was added to fix Batman. By 1967, Batmania was starting to cool, and ABC was getting nervous. Batman was still loud, colorful, and ridiculous, but the cultural moment that once stopped America midweek was fading. The network made it clear, change something or cancel everything. So the producers reached for a classic television solution, add Batgirl. Enter Yvonne Craig, brought in during season 3 as Barbara Gordon's crime-fighting alter ego. The move was designed to attract young female viewers and answer criticism that the show felt like a boys' club with gadgets. She was smart, capable, independent, and explicitly framed as a positive female role model. To sell the idea, the producers even filmed a special 8-minute presentation just for ABC executives, proving Batgirl could work alongside Batman and Robin. The pitch landed and the show got renewed for one final season. But television irony struck immediately. While the intent was to bring in girls, Batgirl's sleek purple costume, motorcycle entrances, and Craig's athletic grace, she was a trained ballerina after all, had a completely different effect. Male viewership jumped. The dads stayed glued to the screen. The network quietly stopped asking too many questions. Batgirl didn't save Batman forever, but she did prove one thing, that television fixes sometimes work, just never for the reasons anyone planned. Number 6. Those pals and zaps were carefully engineered chaos. Those colorful fight words splashing across the screen were carefully curated, counted, and rotated like a designer wardrobe for fists. The show used more than 80 unique onomatopoeia graphics. Pow and Zap were the reliable workhorses, but the writers and editors mixed in bizarre one-timers just to keep things weird. Zwap, kersploosh, thwape. The words existed for a very practical reason. ABC worried the fight scenes were too violent for kids, so instead of cutting the action, the show covered it with comic book sound effects. Suddenly, punches weren't punches anymore, they were pop art. Violence, but make it educational typography. The colors weren't accidental either. Bright reds, yellows, and blues mirrored the pop art explosion of the mid-60s, channeling the look of artists like Roy Lichtenstein and Andy Warhol. Every fight became a moving comic panel, loud enough to distract you from the fact that Batman and Robin were clearly hitting nothing. Those graphics were added in post-production. Adam West and Burt Ward had to swing at empty air, perfectly timing their punches and reactions, trusting editors to drop the right bam in the right place later. Number 5. Every guest villain got paid exactly the same. On the 1966 Batman, fame did not equal a bigger paycheck. If you were billed as a special guest villain, your rate was locked in, period. The deal was simple. Guest villains were paid $1,250 per half-hour episode. Since Batman almost always ran its villains across a Wednesday to Thursday cliffhanger, that meant a tidy $2,500 total for a full 2-part story. Same money, same contract, no negotiations, and here's the wild part. That flat rate applied whether you were a working character actor or an absolute legend. Vincent Price, Liberace, and Eli Wallach all earned the exact same paycheck for battling the dynamic duo. Oscar nominees, concert hall royalty, and prestige film stars were financially equal the moment they stepped into Gotham. The consistency was intentional. The producers wanted villains rotating constantly, not holding the show hostage over salary demands. If you wanted in, you accepted the rate, donned the costume, and committed to the bit. You could conquer Gotham, but not the contract. Number 4, the narrator was the producer the whole time. That narrator on Batman, who sounded like the world was ending every 30 seconds, wasn't some overpaid announcer chewing the scenery, it was the guy signing the checks. Executive producer William Dozier couldn't find a narrator who hit the exact tone he wanted. He auditioned professional voice actors, big voices with serious credentials, and all of them were technically great, just that was the problem. According to Dozier, they were too good. He famously said none of them could do it right because they couldn't stand to be that bad. So, he did it himself. Dozier slipped behind the microphone and delivered the narration in a breathless, overdramatic style that treated every scene like a national emergency. He even used a fake name, Desmond Doomsday, to keep the secret. That pseudonym showed up on the Batman soundtrack album and in internal production notes, while Dozier pretended he had nothing to do with it. And Dozier didn't stop there. He carried the exact same narration style over to the Green Hornet, which famously helped make Bruce Lee a household name in America. Same voice, same intensity, same breathless urgency. The man who couldn't find anyone willing to sound that ridiculous on purpose became the voice of Gotham himself. Number 3, Robin made up the holy lines on the fly. Those legendary holy whatever outbursts started in the writer's room. The format was simple. Something bad happens, Batman stays calm, and Robin loses his mind with a holy insert absurd noun here. But while the writers invented the gag, Burt Ward ran with it. He was encouraged to improvise his own variations on set, coming up with whatever sounded silly, clean, and memorable, as long as it fit a boy wonder trying to process danger at full volume. That's how the show gave us gems like holy ravioli, holy hole in a donut, and a parade of increasingly unhinged food, math, and vocabulary references. Some were scripted, but many were Ward freestyling moments before cameras rolled. The mix kept the lines feeling fresh. Ward himself sometimes had no idea what holy was coming next until he said it. It became one of the show's most reliable running gags. Batman stayed composed, the villains schemed, and Robin turned every crisis into a verbal fireworks display, half written and half whatever popped into his head. Number 2, NBC wanted to save Batman until someone bulldozed the Batcave. After ABC pulled the plug in 1968, the TV series wasn't actually dead yet. Behind the scenes, there was real hope that another network might swoop in and save it. And for a brief, beautiful moment, NBC looked ready to play hero. Then, the Batcave disappeared. Following the cancellation, producers did what studios often do when they assume a show is finished for good. They waited a little. When no immediate pickup offer arrived, they made a brutal call. The sets were demolished, bulldozed. The Batcave, Wayne Manor, all of it was reduced to rubble. 2 weeks later, NBC officially stepped in. Yeah, 2 weeks. NBC was reportedly interested in bringing Batman back for a 4th season, but when executives learned the sets had already been destroyed, they did the math. Rebuilding the Batcave alone would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Recreating Wayne Manor, even more. Suddenly, saving Batman wasn't quirky nostalgia, it was a very expensive construction project. NBC passed. The rescue attempt died, not because audiences vanished, and not because the cast quit, but because someone moved too fast with a bulldozer. Both Adam West and Burt Ward later said they couldn't believe how quickly the studio had erased the show's physical world, effectively locking the door on any future. In the end, the Cape Crusader wasn't defeated by a supervillain. He was taken out by bad timing and a very motivated demolition crew. Number 1, the Batusi was never in the script. Okay, now we saved this one for last because it perfectly captures everything weird and wonderful about this show. The Batusi, the dance move that launched 1,000 parodies, was never in the script. No writer pitched it, no choreographer blocked it out. Adam West had made the whole thing up, reportedly about 10 minutes before they shot the scene. According to West, the inspiration came from magazine photos and things he'd seen people doing in clubs. While rehearsing, he started experimenting with exaggerated off-balance movements, arms up, fingers framing his face like some kind of masked go-go dancer who took a wrong turn into crime fighting. The producers could have shut it down, but instead, they let him cook. The name was a pun on the Batusi, a real 1960s dance craze which made the whole bit land even harder. Audiences got the joke immediately. Here was the world's greatest detective, stone-faced and completely serious, busting moves like he wandered into the wrong party and refused to leave. Decades later, the Batusi refuses to die. Pulp Fiction referenced it, The Simpsons parodied it, and it's become shorthand for superhero does something gloriously ridiculous. Adam West improvised a goofy dance and somehow it became immortal. That's the power of committing to the bit. And there you have it, 15 weird and wild facts about Batman 1966. Which fact surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe and share this with a friend who loves the Caped Crusader. Until next time, this is Remember When.